when I was a senior in high school, I helped to plan and carry out my class's senior break. As a result of doing that, I not only had my diploma taken away from me, but I ultimately had to do community service in order to get my diploma back and ultimately graduate on time. So, if you want to hear about the totally outlandish, totally crazy, totally true story about the time that I almost didn't graduate high school, then keep on watching. Hi, hey, how are you? How are you? How are you? Do you know what time it is? I will tell you what time it is. It is time for another Teddy Talks ASMR video. My name is Teddy, hey, and I'm talking in a sort of ASMR style. In this video, I will be beginning my Storytime journey. I have been wanting to do story times on this channel for a while, and I think I'm comfortable enough to begin sharing some stories from my life, beginning with high school. If you saw one of my most recent videos, I talked about wanting to start with story times in high school just because the most wild, most kind of out there, most outlandish stories really came from my time in high school. I am so excited to start this Storytime ASMR journey with you guys, because story times on YouTube, whether they are ASMR or not, they are my favorite. I love story times. I love short story times, long story times. I will watch anything and everything. If there's a story time on YouTube, I have probably seen it and watched it and listened to it. So I'm very, very excited to contribute to that genre of video and that genre of ASMR. Guys, we are going to start with this story because out of all the stories and all of the things and all of the events that happened to me in high school, I always come back to this story. We have to start off the Teddy Talks ASMR story times strong, and I think out of all the stories I'm going to tell on this channel, this is probably the top tier. Just putting it out there, I had to start strong. So let's begin. To streamline the process of telling this story, I will include timestamps in the video. You guys know, that I can definitely get off track and I can ramble, so I will do my best to produce a very streamlined, edited story time, but at the same time, I just want to have fun with it, so I have some notes that I will be looking at. I can't actually see myself anywhere on the monitors or anything. And other than that, what was the other thing I wanted to say? I know what I was gonna say. If you want any context about my high school experience, or you want to see pictures of me from high school, there should be a video on my channel talking about who I was in high school. So if you look back a couple videos or just search Teddy Talks ASMR, who was I in high school, something to that extent, then you can actually hear a little bit more about why this story transpired the way it did, and kind of hear why my high school was so strange, and I guess also see how weird I was in high school. So with all that being said, that video is there if you want to see it, but I think that we should hop right into the story. I want you to picture it. Picture this scenario. The year is 2015. ASMR, which is me. I am 18 or 19 years old, and I'm about to graduate high school. So the whole idea of this senior prank, it was just randomly thrown together one day, which is why it worked, because we didn't have any inkling that we would be doing a senior prank, which gave no worry or no warning to the administration or the teachers or anybody that this was going to happen, because we didn't even know that it was going to happen. To kind of talk about the history of senior pranks at our school, up until this point, no one had really done anything that was that crazy. And the year before, we had seniors that did a senior prank, but it was really lame. What the seniors did the year before was they got to school early and they parked their cars in a really obnoxious way so that nobody could park or really get through the parking lot, which is kind of funny, and that would probably piss some people off. But they got there early, they did it, and then by the time everybody got there with the buses and everything, the seniors moved the cars so nobody got in trouble, and it was just lame. If I recall, I was sitting with some classmates in a study hall, but we were all seniors who had met our quota of credits, so we weren't in an actual study hall. We were just in the lunchroom hanging out. That's kind of how it was my senior year, because we had met our quota of credits, so we did not need to be in class all the time, which is also how the senior prank came to be, right? This specific group of kids, we got really close. It was seniors and then some other people that went to the school, like other students that weren't seniors. But on this particular day, it was just the seniors hanging out, because we were really, really close to graduation. We were just days away from graduation, and we were sitting during one of those open study hall periods in the lunchroom, just hanging out. And this specific group of kids, we really got to know each other because we all took a news class together. Excuse me. Where every week or multiple times a week we would film the school news, and then I just remembered a part of the story that I almost forgot. We would film the school news, and we would edit it and send it out and blah blah blah, right? So we got to know each other better through this class, the school news situation, and then we had free periods together. So like I said, I was kind of friends with everybody, but this group of kids, like, we were down to clown. And clown we did on this particular day. So the conversation comes up about the senior prank from the previous year and how lame it was, because it didn't really do anything. Like, we just all thought it was lame. And it had been going around the question, were we going to do a senior prank? But then nobody was really doing anything. And we had our senior skip day and everything. So, like, nobody really suspected anything. Again, because we didn't even know up until this moment that there was going to be a senior prank. There was a kid in this group, and I gave everybody fake names, and I'm going to keep a document, a running document, so in future story times, if these people come up, then I can just use the name that I gave in this video, so it's not confusing. So we are going to call this individual Joe. So Joe was talking about how the senior prank was lame the year before. We all agreed, and so we were wondering, like, what could we do that wouldn't be lame, that was actually kind of cool, that hadn't been done before. And Joe's mom actually worked at the school, so the fact that he was kind of the one that really contributed most of the prank is really, really funny. And I wonder if his mom knows that he contributed so much. And also, I I think that his mom still works at the school to this day. That's just extra added context. So, Joe says, okay, last year's prank was really lame. We could definitely do better than that. So we're kind of brainstorming, and it came up in conversation that so many of these kids did not live far away from the school. And this is kind of where the news class comes into the mix. So Joe says, what if we go get like skateboards and rollerblades and ripsticks and we ride around the school for we'll call it senior appreciation. We'll get everybody out of their rooms and we're gonna ride around the school, which our school was very small and it was a rectangle, so it didn't work out too well just because you had to like go kind of like in a almost a square kind of route, but then up and then like around. It was almost like a horseshoe, but you had to go like up and down, so there wasn't really a lot of space for speed, if that makes sense. So Joe says, let's start there. Like, what if everybody runs, gets something to ride on, comes back, and we ride around the hallways for like a senior appreciation? You know, everybody comes out of your classroom and, you know, you watch us ride around, and this is perfect because nobody gets hurt. It's not messy, but it's actually like cool. Now, the issue is, how are we going to get everybody out of their classrooms? Because we are in prime testing season. Even though May is not usually standardized testing season, for some reason there was testing going on that was really important. This is where our other player comes in, another person in the group we are going to call Dee Dee. A girl named Dee Dee. So, like I said, we are all friends just because we're in class together. It's a small school, but then this core group of people that basically got the senior prank started, that were there for the inception, we were like extra close because we were in this news class, and this is kind of where the news class comes into play. So Dee Dee says, well, you know, we do the school news, but guys, remember, I do the announcements. So Dee Dee would go into the main office and she would plug in the password and she would make announcements on the phone. So not only were we running the school news and we could kind of run stories and do whatever we wanted up to a certain extent, but we also had Dee Dee who knew the password to the phone to make announcements, which is still kind of crazy that they gave her that password, but it's too late now. I'm sure after what happened, they don't give out the password to the phone anymore. Probably not. So Dee Dee says, yeah, like, here's what we're gonna do. I can go into the office. Mind you, it's the end of the day when we're planning this, right? Dee Dee says, I'm gonna go into the office, you know, towards the end of the day, and I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna walk over to the phone. I'm going to plug in the password, and I'm going to tell everybody to leave their classrooms for I am going to tell everyone to leave their classrooms for a senior appreciation. But the way that she was describing it, it's not like she wanted everybody to leave or we wanted everybody to leave. We just kind of said, like, go to the door, look out into the hallway, you know, say hi to the seniors one last time. It's senior appreciation, like, we're gonna come around. And then the joke would be that we had all these things with us that were crazy and like not supposed to be at school, right? So that was the plan. Dee Dee goes into the office, enters the password, has everybody come out of their classrooms, like almost into the hallway really, really quick. We ride around on, you know, ripsticks and scooters and just anything that we can get our hands on, right? So that was the plan, right? And then we were going to leave and everything would be okay. And I remember it might have been Joe, but somebody said, and this is great, they get mad at us because we're just gonna have them come out for like 2 minutes and then there's no mess, like we're not vandalizing anything, there's no graffiti, so this will be perfect. So at that point, once the plan was set in place, we were doing it, we had 1 hour to get everything ready, and the plan was to low-key tell the seniors that this was happening, but spoiler alert, not everybody found out, so it was only about like half of the senior class that actually showed up for our senior break. And some extra tidbits of information. I felt extra confident because I had already turned in my graduation form. There was essentially a form you had to turn in that allowed you to graduate, so I felt untouchable because I already turned it in. But for some reason, nobody else did. I don't remember the reasoning behind that, like why I was able to turn it in and these other people couldn't, but everybody was supposed to turn in their form at the end of the day. I got mine done early, so I turned it in a day early. So in Teddy Talks ASMR mind, in my mind, I was like, yeah, like they can't hurt me or do anything to me anyway because I turned the form in. So that was just some extra information, but everybody breaks. We have an hour, and the people that lived really close by ran and grabbed a bunch of things for people that couldn't go home. I did not live close enough to go home and grab anything. Here's what ended up happening though. So everybody had their own little journey, and then an hour later we kind of came back and met in the lunchroom because there was a door right there. But in that time, people got ripsticks and scooters and rollerblades. One girl went and got her dog. I was supposed to bring my dog. My dog was supposed to be there, but I lived too far away. So we, this girl and I both had Australian Shepherds, and she brought her Australian Shepherd to the senior break. I could not grab my Australian Shepherd. He was there in spirit, but he was not there. So I didn't have anything. Eventually I got hold of a ripstick, and that's what I rode around. But, 2 girls went to the nurse, and they got a wheelchair. So they rode the wheelchair around eventually. And, Heelys. Someone had Heelys. Like, we had way more stuff and various kinds of stuff to ride around than we could have ever dreamed of. And the fact that we accomplished getting all this stuff in an hour is pretty remarkable. All these items are being like rounded up. And at the same time, some of the adults are finding out that worked at the school because, as I said, Joe's mom worked there, so I'm pretty sure she knew. The nurse definitely knew because the nurse gave these 2 girls her wheelchair to ride around. So the nurse knew about her senior break before it happened. And we thought we were being slick. Somebody else went and told the behavior person about our prank, and he liked the fact that it wasn't hurting anybody. So it is on the record, like, this happened. This is true, that multiple adults knew about our senior prank. And we'll leave it at that for right now. But multiple people knew about our senior prank before it happened. So that's what happened in the hour, right? Rollerblades, ripsticks, scooters, dogs, wheelchairs, Heelys were all brought together. So then the time comes, right? There's a huge group of us. Even though we weren't a big class, there was still like 20-25 kids. About half the class knew about the prank. And so, our lunchroom, about half the class knew about the prank. And even though my class was small, It's crazy. There were also skateboards and penny boards. I should mention that too. So it's go time. Dee Dee turns the corner, goes into the office, and plugs in the password. And she says, attention, everybody come into the hallway, pause your testing for 2 minutes, and come, congratulate your seniors on their graduation, right? And at that moment, we were not with her, so we did not see her, right? She's in the office, we are in the lunchroom. The assistant principal turns the corner, and I will never forget this moment. So, she says, everybody enter the hallway, congratulate your seniors. And the assistant principal turns the corner, hand out, he says, stop. Stop. And we were told, basically as the prank evolved throughout that 1 hour to get ready, that we were going to go when, I don't remember if who was supposed to give the signal, and I don't remember if the signal was a whistle or someone saying go, but someone said go, and he has his hand out, he's like, stop, and we all just took off, right? This man got swallowed up by a horde of high school seniors and all the stuff that came with it. So we rode around. Most people just did a lap. Some people didn't even go up the stairs. I did 2 laps, and that was honestly really cool. In that moment, seeing everybody and seeing all these people you went to school with and seeing them, give you your props and your kudos and giving kudos to you and just whatever, it was cool. It did feel like a movie moment. Just having everybody clapping and shouting and just writing. I was writing my little ripstick. Not mine, but I was writing the ripstick. And trust and believe, I was cruising on that thing. So I go on my second lap. I go downstairs, and Dee Dee is back in the lunchroom along with everybody else. The assistant principal said, get that dog out of here. And so they were kind of honed in on the dog. The dog never actually made it anywhere, because after he said stop, he kind of went over to the dog, and then he was like, get that dog out of here. So the dog, whose name I think was Coda, doxing Coda. Coda died from cancer, rest in peace, Coda. But Coda was kind of the big distraction, because they saw the dog, and after he said stop, he was like, there's a dog here. We all went, and then he's like, get that dog out of here. So I come back around, he's the assistant principal is still mad about the dog or whatever, and Dee Dee is she's backed into a corner with the assistant principal, the secretary of the school, which I think is Joe's mom, I think, and then the principal of the school, right? They were not happy, guys. They were pissed. They were mad as hell that we had done this, because, spoiler alert, we did something really fun that was not harmful, but we essentially took over the school with our senior prank and actually did something that was kind of cool. It wasn't really that cool in hindsight. It was the legend, the prestige of it all, with everything that kind of transpires from this point on. So they are yelling at Dee Dee. They're being really mean. Why did she enter the password? Why did she do that? She just, commanded everybody in the school to leave the rooms. Dee Dee's crying. We're like, this is dumb. And I'm fine. I feel totally fine. My form's turned in. I'm on cloud 9, but I'm mad that they're yelling at her. And eventually I think she walked away or got out of there. Something happened, right? Other seniors, this happened towards the end of the day, so other seniors kind of came from their other classes like, what did we miss, right? And then it was getting closer to the end of the day, because we did this towards the end of the day when we had the senior prank. assistant principal, and it said that there was going to be an impromptu senior meeting after school. And if you did not show up, you were going to get in trouble. They were going to review the cameras, and they were going to get your ass. So at that point in my life, had never been so upset, because I'm like, we didn't even hurt anybody. Like, Dee Dee, they're really ganging up on her when we all did this. Like, everybody's back in their class. Like, nobody left the school. Like, this is dumb. So I left knowing that I was on the cameras, but I thought no one's gonna rat me out. Like, they're not gonna see me on the cameras, because they basically in the announcement they had said, like, they were gonna look at the cameras, but also if you, like, they were encouraging people to snitch on each other, especially people that, like, brought the supplies. So I left and I went home, and basically I was acting really scared once I got home. Like, oh my gosh, like, what if I get in trouble for not going to the meeting? Maybe I should have gone to the meeting. But my parents really reassured me, because they were, they kind of saw that I was fidgety and kind of just, like, acting weird, and they were like, what's going on? And I told them, and they're like, okay, so you rode a ripstick around the school? And I said, yeah, but, like, Dee Dee, she, like, made the announcement. And my parents said, well, did anybody get hurt? And I said, no, not that I know of. And so my parents are like, literally, like, you're an adult now, you rode a ripstick around the school, you graduate in a day or two, a couple days, whatever, like, calm down, chill out. That was my experience going home and telling my parents. They were just like, okay, like, they thought I was joking because I was acting so scared. Like, they thought that I did something really, really bad. Now, one thing that I was not present for, but that I feel like I should mention, is the fact that this meeting is kind of legendary, and I was not there for it. But a lot of the kids, like, if you knew that you were, like, on the camera, and if you brought supplies, like, those kids just accepted their fate. They were like, we're screwed, like, we're going to the meeting, we'll let you know how it goes. Because I asked my friends later, like, what the hell happened at this meeting? So basically, what it turned into was there was no teachers or no admin in the room. All the teachers lied and said they didn't know. Even the nurse who gave us the wheelchairs, it was like, how are you going to say you didn't know, but you gave the wheelchair? Like, you probably should have kept the wheelchair, because that could have been used for medical purposes, as a nurse. But I love that she gave us the wheelchair. I'm just saying, like, the logic from the admin just didn't quite make sense to me. And we told, or some people told, like, the behavior people, and there were multiple teachers and admin that knew. And you know what? I don't blame them for lying. They did lie, but as a teacher now, yeah, save your own ass, I get it. So the teachers that knew about the prank did not give a flying about us. So I'm not even there, right? But my best friend, told me later that it was basically everybody getting thrown into a room. The door is, like, locked, no teachers, no admin, and they were like, figure it out. Like, who takes the blame for this? Because they are going to issue an apology to the entire school via the school news. So not only are they asking us, like, the school news broadcast people, to issue the apology, but they're basically asking people to rat each other out and take the blame, and ask us to produce a show that is saying, like, not a show, but, like, produce a segment for the show that is accepting blame and responsibility and talking about how dumb and stupid we are, essentially, which turned out to be hilarious. But I wish I could include that in this video, because we had to go make an apology. That's a spoiler alert. We had to produce an apology and have it looked over and edited, and this story is so stupid. Anyway, so in this meeting, the kids that did not know about the senior prank were going after the kids that knew about it, and they were arguing about certain kids that were in the gray area. Like, did a certain kid bring stuff? Did they not? Like, were they riding around, or were they doing whatever? Like, people were days or hours, like we were gonna get caught. And we didn't know this was happening until today. It was just an opportunity that happened, right? That's what they're saying. But this plays into kind of the culture of the school, because I told you guys in my other video talking about high school, like this was a school where kids that were bullied at other schools came. So there was kind of a lot of feelings of being like left out or treated a different way. And in that same kind of vein, our school was very academic. So academics were everything. GPAs were everything. Advanced classes and AP and college classes were everything. Not necessarily for me, but for a lot of these people they were. And so the kids that weren't a part of it, and some of the kids I think that were a part of it, were so worried about their academic and career life after high school, and they were so convinced that this was going to ruin them. So I will just leave the meeting at that because that's all I know. But to this day I'm a little sad I didn't go, but it was also badass to just leave and say screw this, because it was one of the first times in my life that I really just said like screw the school. Like, I turned in the form, what are they going to do to me? But to this day, like when the story is brought up or when we've kind of described it, it's always nice to have my best friend there because she was there, and the way she talks about it is so funny and concise. Like every time she tells the story, it's always the same. It never changes, and she just remembers what certain people said and did, and it was just described as a bloodbath, and they were there for a while. So there's that. Alright, so I told you about the after school meeting. I left. I was over it. I was upset with how over the top the reaction from the teachers and the admin was, right? I told you about the after school meeting. So all that ends, right? The after school meeting happens for like over an hour. It was a long meeting apparently, which I was not present for. I was at home talking to my parents. And I'm going to read you the email that was sent out about what we did. Dear parents, you are receiving this email because your son or daughter was involved in a senior prank at 1 o'clock today. The nature of this prank threatened the security of the school and is detailed as follows. Senior students accessed the school PA system. They instructed all students over the PA to leave their classrooms. They opened locked external doors to let other seniors in. Seniors ran through the school halls, yelling, shouting, riding scooters, skateboards, rollerblades, pushing a wheelchair, and accompanied by dog. The consequences for this will be as follows. Your senior is to report to room 110 at 8 a.m. Thursday morning. Students will be assigned various indoor housekeeping tasks and outdoor lawn and field tasks. Students should be in work clothes, prepared to work in whatever the weather brings. Work gloves recommended. Final checkout will be available after the morning work session. Students who do not report will not receive their diplomas. So you heard that email. That was wild. And what happened after this was just an avalanche of craziness. Really all brought on by the admin. I don't blame any of the teachers because they had nothing to do with this email. But the admin really thought that they were doing their big one, that they were taking a big stand. However, this email really just brought it in on themselves. It really brought, they were really clowning themselves is what I was trying to say. I'm going to try to tell the rest of the story in a succinct fashion, but it's all kind of graduated on Friday. So we literally just had Thursday to do the community service and get the diploma back, because at that point they could still rescind it if we didn't show up, and then we would graduate. So for a lot of these kids, for our class, it was like, damn, like, you gotta be here or your ass is grass. But everybody thought the email was ridiculous. Everybody thought it was just too much, and the admin kind of came back with a bite, and they had a dumb response, in my opinion. But they said the reason that they had to take this seriously is because what we did could have led to a school blank. I'm not going to say the word, you can guess, but they thought that we could have been planning a school blank, or our prank could have led to that by the school being breached. And when they're talking about seniors accessing the doors, we were letting people in, but we knew the people. We weren't going to be letting random strangers into the school. So do with that as you will. This next part of the story, I will never forget. It's just insanity. So we got put into groups, right? Work gloves recommended. Some people got shipped to the track for track and field. They had to pull weeds. Other people, I think, had to go like do lawn care or something, or like plant flowers outside. And I was in the group that was in the gym, and we had to stack chairs and like carry them into the site for graduation. We just had to like carry chairs and set them up. It was really not that bad, okay? I'm not trying to make it seem like the community service was bad. They were just on their bullshit. So I will never forget this either. So we all show up, and they can still rescind our diplomas and make us not graduate. So it was pretty apparent that we had to act in a somber, demure fashion. When I walked into the gym and there was gym classes happening, I felt like a celebrity. You know, we had our heads down, and you know, gym classes are huge. There was 2 gym classes full of kids, and when we walked in, heads turned, they whipped around and just stared at us, and like people were pointing and whispering, and like what the admin did by sending out that email was turn this into infamy. Like our class, the class of 2015 for all that matters, is infamous, really not just at our school but in our area, for doing that, because of the consequences that we got and because of the reaction from the admin. Had they not said anything and just said LOL, haha, like don't do that again, and maybe given us a slap on the wrist and not done this leap off the cliff, it wouldn't have mattered. So in my personal opinion, I know that we did not do like the craziest, like sickest prank. It was the reaction from the people that really took it to what this story is, right? We enter the gym, everyone's pointing, everyone's whispering, the teacher's like, look at me, don't look at them. It was serious. I was like, we're badasses. The gag was, the shocker was that the janitor, one of the janitors was in the gym, and he pulled somebody aside and he said, thanks for doing a prank that didn't make a mess that I had to clean up. I was like, yeah, right, like there weren't even skid marks from the tires on the floors. Like we didn't graffiti anything. We weren't messy, right? So that was really funny, and I appreciated that comment. The janitor told my friend that, and then my friend told me, he's like, the janitor just came up to me and told me that he appreciated our prank not making a mess. So that makes me happy deep down. And the janitor also said that he thought it was stupid that we had to do community service. But it's just funny now, like it was so stupid. It's just that day. The day was so funny. So we set up the chairs for 2 hours. They call us back into a big group. They had to bus kids to the track and field, by the way, so they were spending money to like get us to community service. They were making kids pull weeds. They were making them move dirt around like crazy. Like, try doing that today. Oh, it would be over for the school. So yeah, they pull us in the group. They pull us back together. Big group. guys did the community service, but now you need to apologize for your actions. So, we wrote a statement, gave it to the news crew, because at this point we weren't coming back to class, obviously after what happened, right? And they played our statement on the news, on the school news, which further made this infamous. Like, it was a double whammy. There was already the email, excuse me, there was already the email that went out, but then the whole school watches this fake ass apology with all our names in it, like co-signing it. And so it just doubled down on how ridiculous this was, and literally nobody was on the side of the school at this point. So graduation came. They were adamant, like, if you guys do anything at this graduation, you're dead and you will not graduate ever in your life, is kind of how it felt when they were talking about it. Somebody brought rollerblades to rollerblade across the stage. They did not actually wear them, and we were checked for stuff when we came in. My best friend that I mentioned that was at the meeting, she was valedictorian, and we were not allowed to mention this in the speeches, but she did anyway, that like we really rocked it out and we finished strong, all while accompanied by a dog. And the principal looked like she was going to kill my best friend for saying that. But accompanied by a dog, guys, like, became all we said for a while, right? So we graduated, and at this point, this is kind of where the story ends. You know, this is like a god tier level story to me, something that we can rehash all the time, and I'm so happy that it gets to live on this YouTube channel now. Honestly, probably a part of why I started my channel is so that I can tell the story. So that is the end of the story, but I'm going to include a few extra tidbits if you want to stick around, just some things that happened after in the following years after our prank. Like, what was the legacy of our prank? If you want some extra tidbits, I'm just going to be adding in some things as we round out the video. So we graduated. Graduation was fine. I more so remember the events leading up to graduation because of the prank versus actual graduation. I went to my senior all-night grad party, and really, guys, after that, I didn't see a lot of these people, like, ever, right? Which is sad, but that's just life. We were supposed to have a 5-year reunion because we were a smaller class. We thought 5 years would be good, but then COVID happened, the pandemic happened, and recently, you know, it's 2026, so you're wondering, did we have a 10-year reunion? Because that's more normal, and we did not. Nobody said anything about a 10-year reunion, but life just happens, and I think people are busy, and post-pandemic, I just think people are not as inclined to get together, and people are just tired. So it would be really fun, honestly, to sit down on this channel with some of these people and ask them their perspective, because I would be so down for that, and I think they would be too. But I really don't know when I will see the people from this story again, or if they'll see this video. That'd be crazy if they saw this. I'm sure some people will have like different recollections and different retellings, and I would love to hear it, right? The more the merrier. So there's that. I wanted to talk about the next year. So even though, you know, I don't know how I appear to people when I'm just talking like this, I watch these videos back and I kind of see a difference out of myself, I think. But contrary to popular belief, even though high school was fine, like I said, when it ended, I was ready to be out. So I did not return to high school that much. Like, some people go back a lot. And for my freshman year of college, I went back a couple times and then never again. I maybe went to a football game, a basketball game, a play. I saw some underclassmen, some friends, and then I knew in my head that you cannot be that person that is sticking around your high school for years. So I thought it was appropriate for me to support the people that I knew. And the last event that I went to was the graduation for my friends that were under me. You know, underclassmen. No, not underclassmen, but like under me. And then I just never went back there. And that's fine. I just did not want to be that person that was always going back. So I went back a couple times. So there's that. But I bring that up because the class after us got really worked up about doing a senior prank. They really wanted to do one. And we were saying, like, it's not that our prank was good. It was just the fact that the reaction it got was more prominent than the prank. So, like, you can do something crazy, but it doesn't make it crazy, or, like, it doesn't make it better than our prank. Our prank was infamous because of the admin reaction and the apology. Like, those two things together just skyrocketed it to infamy. They did not care. So their senior prank, what they ended up doing, this is the class that graduated after a year later, which was dumb for them to do a senior prank anyway because the eyes were already on them. So, like, I don't know. So at the graduation, their plan was that whenever they went to go shake the principal's hand, they were going to have a coin in their hand so that she would have to, like, take a coin. And that flopped. I think a couple people did it, but, like, they were either supposed to hand it to her so she had all this money, or, like, they were supposed to shake her hand so that the money would drop out. It was really awkward. Like, people could see it happening, and then kids stopped doing it. And, you know, no shade towards them, but they did not touch or come close to our senior prank. So I thought that you would find that extra bit of information funny. The last thing I wanted to mention was, you're probably wondering, Teddy Talks ASMR, your teacher. So is this appropriate for you to be talking about on the internet, where your students or your fellow coworkers or your admin could see you talking about this crazy situation? And I'm so glad that you asked me that and that you want me to talk about that, because I want to talk about it. So I have made it a point to discuss this at work. There was a trivia game going around the school about teachers, and so I offered up this information because I figured that at some point in my life it would come out. And it has brought about many good conversations about good pranks, bad pranks, what is a prank. So yeah, I mean, everybody at my workplace, at the school that I work at, they know. They almost don't believe it, but they know about it. And for a while, I just told kids that, yes, I did a senior prank, but no, I couldn't tell them about the prank. And then I opened up and kind of explained the story when I entered my fun fact, which is this prank, into the trivia game. And yeah, it led to a lot of good conversations. None of the students I work with have replicated the prank, thank goodness. And I'm not going to endorse anyone, or I'm not going to advocate that you do try to replicate this, okay? That is just what I'm saying. That's what I believe, you know, for all legal intents and purposes. But do you know what time it is? I will tell you what time it is. It is time for me to head out. Out. Thank you so much for joining me in this video tonight. I started like kind of posing like this with the mic because it doesn't look super awkward. I really enjoy how this feels and how this looks, by the way, so expect me to just, you know, get cozy and sit like this while I yap and tell a story from here on out. Other than that, I might pop in to add context, or, editing me might pop in, but I feel like I covered everything. And this was such a daunting task because the story is a big part of my life, or it was at one point. But as far as my YouTube channel, I was so nervous because I wanted to tell it right and tell it in a funny way. So let me know down below if I did that, and if not, what could I have done to have made it funnier or better, I'll be a little vulnerable here. It's really hard for me sometimes to be funny because my humor is not always received well, and that makes me shut down. And on this channel, I just want to be what I think is funny, without feeling like I'm going to make people feel uncomfortable, because in real life, people take me way too seriously, and I don't want to be serious all the time. But it's really hard to be funny, or like want to be funny and want to make jokes and be silly when people take you so seriously. So I just had fun with this, guys, and I think I did an okay job. And what else is there to say? I don't know. But Teddy Talks ASMR is out, and I should probably go. But yeah, check out my "Who Was I in High School" video for more context and some pictures, so you could see what I looked like at the time that this happened. And definitely expect